Okay. Well, I thought we would do the same thing that Susan had us do, which is read a regular version and then follow up with the message, like a couplet at a time. So would somebody like to read chapter 12? And we'll go through verse 12. So in the message, this is called If You Love Learning, this portion of chapter 12. So would somebody like to read the regular version and somebody read the message after it? Helen,
I will do it.
the regular?
The
And who's gonna,
regular, yeah, I don't have the message, so
okay, who's gonna do the message?
I could do it.
Thank you, Susan.
whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. Are we on 12 or on 12?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, 12 through verse 12, please.
yeah. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but those who hate to be rebuked are stupid. The good obtain favor from the Lord, but those who devise evil he condemns.
You want me to read in between?
Yeah, in between.
Oh, all right, all
I
righty.
think, isn't that how we did it last week?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
I
okay.
forgot.
If you love learning, you love the discipline that goes with it. How short-sighted to refuse correction.
The
And
good obtain favor from the Lord, but those who devise evil he condemns.
a good person basks in the delight of God, and he wants nothing to do with devious schemers.
No one finds security by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will never be moved.
You can't find firm footing in a swamp, but life rooted in God stands firm.
A good wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones.
A hearty wife invigorates her husband, but a frigid woman is cancer in the bones.
The thoughts of a righteous are just, the advice of the wicked is treacherous.
The thinking of principled people makes for justice. The plots of degenerates corrupt.
The words of the wicked are a deadly ambush, but the speech of the upright delivers them.
The words of the wicked kill. The speech of the upright saves.
The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand.
Wicked people fall to pieces. There's nothing to them. The homes of good people hold together.
One is commended for good sense, but a perverse mind is despised.
A person who talks sense is honored. Airheads are held in contempt.
Better to be despised and have a servant than to be self-important and lack food.
Better to be ordinary and work for a living than act important and starve in the process.
The righteous know the needs of their animals, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel.
Good people are good to their animals. The good-hearted, in quotes, bad people kick and abuse them.
Those who till their land will have plenty of food, but those who follow worthless pursuits have no sense.
The one who stays on the job has food on the table. The witless chase whims and fancies.
The wicked covet the proceeds of wickedness, but the root of the righteous bears fruit.
What the wicked construct finally falls into ruin, while the roots of the righteous give life and more life.
Thank you. So that's verses 1 through 12 of chapter 12 under the heading of If You Love Learning in the message. Any comments on what we read and heard?
On the first one, on mine it says, "He who loves correction loves knowledge. He who hates reproof is a mere brute." A mere brute.
Yeah.
And verse 4, where it talks about a disgraceful wife, is translated as frigid woman with cancer in her bones. Wasn't sure
Yeah.
how accurate that was, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what their point was.
And then in verse 9, it's better to be despised and have a servant than to be self important and lack food. Well, it's not better to be despised. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah.
Well, and on that 4 again, it says a capable wife is her husband's crown. I get that. One who disgraces him is like rot in his bones. Well, if she yeah, that does seem a bit. What do you have to do to disgrace your husband that hurts him? She should get the rot in her bones. I don't know.
Verse 10 was very different between the message and my revised standard. Um, I get the first line, a righteous man has regard for the life of his beast. The second line in my Bible is, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. And that makes no sense to me. But then when you read the message, the good-hearted, the people who are quote unquote good-hearted, but they're really bad, they kick and abuse their animals. Okay, that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But are these good-hearted people are the ones that appear to be good-hearted, but they're really not inside?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was.
Mine says a righteous man cares for his beast, but a wicked man is cruel at heart.
Yeah.
There's a footnote in mine that says what passes for mercy with the wicked is cruel.
What? Let's say it again.
What passes for mercy with the wicked is cruel.
Hmm.
Does that mean that I gave him the food that was past date and I was being merciful and giving him some of my food that was actually not any good anymore, but I was being merciful, but I'm actually being cruel?
It might be a good analogy.
If the food is poison, yes.
Well, I've always liked verse 10. I mean, just the first part of it that says a righteous person cares for their needs of their animals. Because in a lot of cultures, you don't get that idea that people realize these are sentient beings. I mean, you don't have to have a, pink leash on a girl dog and a bandana, a sporting bandana on your animal to show that you love them, but just treat them well and kindly and know that they are sentient and they have feelings and they hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think in third world countries, you'll see that, rampant dogs. Ecuador is in third world, but dogs are just rampant,
Oh,
my dog
Yeah,
be
yeah. Oh, in Europe too. Yeah.
yeah, and part of it's, I think, the economy. You can't feed your family. If you're
right.
going to feed your animals, you got to choose, and yet there isn't with some, there's not the love of animals and the care for them that we have been able to afford to do.
Right.
But
It
in
makes a big
Paris, the
difference.
dogs are at your table eating with you on your lap.
Yes.
No, no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the time. All in France. And they were the best behaved dogs, but they're right there under your table and in the seat beside you.
Part of the family, I guess. Yeah, I know in Haiti, it's probably like Ecuador, only worse, where there's just, a zillion dogs running in packs, and they all kind of start looking the same from inbreeding, and their tails curl around their back, and they're just mutts. Nobody cares for them. And I actually, our missions pastor at Open Doors, a very kind man, said, if I was president of Haiti, I'd round up all these stray dogs and shoot them. Just get them out of here. It's distressing to see because it's just completely different than how we
I know
regard people in
Canadians that have,
Europe.
yeah, I know Canadians that have gone to those places and they adopt some and bring them home.
Mm-hmm.
But I always felt not the safest around them. You had to be careful because they'd had such a terrible upbringing, these dogs, that they weren't real trustworthy. They had no reason to trust man. So if something happened, they might snap. And
And they're
I always,
feral.
yeah,
It's hard to cure the feralness out of them.
right.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and even like the beasts of burden, when I've been to Haiti now, I haven't been there since the earthquake, but in the countryside, they still had a lot of things powered by donkeys. And, to see a poor skinny donkey with an ill-fitting bridle that's, scraping their skin and then flies land, on you get maggots, and it's just so
Yeah.
sad. But it's as Sharon said, I can't afford to feed your family. The animals are going to be the last ones. Well, we kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but that's
But
a curious thing.
there probably was a time where the slaves were the ones that did the job the donkeys did, grinding the wheat or whatever. They were the
Mhm.
ones put in traces to do that.
Mhm.
It's easy to go down rabbit holes.
Well, that's what I kind of like going through your verse at a time, because you do find yourself wandering off into various places.
Yeah.
And I did in a couple of these places coming up here, looked for references from Proverbs to the New Testament. So we have a couple of those to talk about. So our next section is called Wise People Take Advice, and that's chapter 12, verses 13 through 28. And if somebody wants to read the regular version, I can pull up the message here. And
I've got the message as well, and I've also got the
oh, if you've
revised.
got the message there, then I'll read
Yep.
the NIV here.
Oh, great. Okay.
And what did I say? 13? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Alrighty, so we'll do the back and forth thing again. Oh, starting with 13. An evil man is trapped by his sinful talk, but a righteous man escapes trouble.
The gossip of bad people gets them in trouble. The conversation of good people keeps them out of it.
It's good.
From the fruit of his lips, a man is filled with good things, as surely as the work of his hands rewards him.
Well spoken words bring satisfaction. Well done work has its own reward.
The way of a fool seems right to him, but a wise man listens to advice.
Fools are headstrong and do what they like. Wise people take advice.
A fool shows his annoyance at once, but a prudent man overlooks an insult.
Fools have short fuses and explode all too quickly. The prudent quietly shrug off insults.
A truthful witness gives honest testimony, but a false witness tells lies.
Truthful witness by a good person clears the air, but liars lay down a smoke screen of deceit.
Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing.
Rash language cuts and maims, but there is healing in the words of the wise. Did I?
No, I'm going back and forth between two Bibles here. And so are we on 20 now?
19.
19.
19.
19. Okay. This is what, when you're looking through bifocals at some of this little teeny print. Okay,
Yeah.
19.
Yeah. No,
Truthful lips.
I'm with you. I thought maybe I had gotten off.
No, I got lost. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment.
Truth lasts. Lies are here today, gone tomorrow.
There is deceit in the hearts of those who plot evil, but joy for those who promote peace.
Evil scheming distorts the schemer. Peace planning brings joy to the planner.
No harm befalls the righteous, but the wicked have their fill of trouble.
No evil can overwhelm a good person, but the wicked have their hands full of it.
The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in men who are truthful.
God can't stomach liars. He loves the company of those who keep their word.
A prudent man keeps his knowledge to himself, but the heart of fools blurts out folly.
Prudent people don't flaunt their knowledge. Talkative fools broadcast their silliness.
Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in slave labor.
The diligent find freedom in their work. The lazy are oppressed by work.
An anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up.
Worry weighs us down. A cheerful word picks us up.
A righteous man is cautious in friendship. Oh, but the way of the wicked leads them astray.
A good person survives misfortune, but a wicked life invites disaster.
A lazy man does not roast his game, but the diligent man prizes his possessions.
A lazy life is an empty life, but early to rise gets the job done.
In the way of righteousness there is life. Along that path is immortality.
Good men and women travel right into life. Sin's detours take you straight to hell.
Well, some of these last ones just don't even seem like the same thing.
Well, I have very different ones for 27 and 28. And
What do you have, the NRSV?
what is this?
I think you have revised standard.
Revised standard.
Why don't
Yeah.
you read the 27 and 28?
A slothful man will not catch his prey, but the diligent man will get precious wealth. In the path of righteousness is life, but the way of error leads to death.
Wow, this is really
Oh, and I've got in 28, in the path of righteousness there is life. In walking its path there is no death.
Wow.
And I have the way of honesty leads to life, but there is a well-worn path to death.
Wow.
Yes, it
Those
depends
are
on
awfully different.
the mood of the translator there. Interesting. Any comments on this section here?
27 had a footnote, the first half of it. This means something like the indolent is not worth his salt.
Well, mine says, and I think this is pretty easy, the lazy hunter puts up no game. So he doesn't, he's like the lazy, hare.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the NIV, New International Version, said the lazy man does not roast his game.
Yeah.
And it says here the meaning of the Hebrew for this word is uncertain because it doesn't make any sense to me. Because he's not going to eat it raw.
No, and mine says, it says, what to say? He puts up no game.
Yeah.
That's if he'd preserve it for
He
the
didn't.
future. Yeah.
And mine says he will not catch it.
Won't catch it?
Will not catch it because he's
Mhm.
very odd.
And I have the same revised standard that Susan does, and we have several footnotes. The meaning of the Hebrew meaning is uncertain. Well, I think so.
Interesting.
Some of the comments about uh, honesty and lies and stuff. I wish it was true that lies don't last, but lies do last sometimes.
I had the same
in our political.
right.
Look at that. Yeah, I was thinking exactly that, all the misinformation that's out there.
Yeah.
And then
people
things
believe
that,
it. People believe all that misinformation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
I
it
mean,
stays, and it doesn't just go away after they said
doesn't
it.
go away.
no, it gets shared, and then other people believe it, and they don't see the rebuttals, and it takes on a life of its own.
And
So-
so much of
Look
it,
for the rebuttals because they know what they believe and what they believe is right, you know.
and so much of it is started outside our country.
Yeah.
That is really getting scary.
That somebody is bad operatives are throwing, a monkey wrench into the works to just get us to
Mhm.
hate each other and
Mhm.
to foment all this stuff.
Well, in 13, mine says, The wicked man is trapped by his own falsehoods, but the righteous come safe through trouble. That doesn't always happen.
It doesn't.
No,
But maybe that, I mean, they're just saying that's what should happen, I guess, this proverb. But it's,
Well, in that video we saw last week talked about, that clearly not everything, it's not a like
yeah,
because of this, then that. You have to, I think, be familiar with Ecclesiastes and Job as well to know that it don't always work the way you think it should.
yeah,
it's about probabilities, not promise. I think we're
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Well, I was curious about this cross reference here, verse 20. There is deceit in the heart of those who plot evil, but joy for those who promote peace. And this NIV version references Romans 14:19, which says, let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and to mutual edification, which is a nice thing for building up the individual Christians and the church. So that's kind of, at least whoever did this NIV translation thought that there was a reference or connection between Proverbs 12:20 and Romans 14:19. Most of the cross references, at least in this Bible, are to other Proverbs and to Psalms and to some of the other Old Testament books, including Ruth. But there's a lot to look at. So I only looked for stuff that was referenced the New Testament.
Well, 21, mine says, no mischief will befall the righteous, but wicked men will get their fill of adversity. Well, that doesn't happen
No.
either.
The message though says no evil can overwhelm a good person. So it doesn't mean they might not be, affected, but it won't cause you to fall or
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would hope you wouldn't denounce the Lord your God because of evil. But if I know what I'm like, I know if I was tortured, I might not hold still. When we were in Washington, D.C. for the commissioning of our lay preachers, we went to one of the museums on the mall. We were in the Civil Rights Museum. Must have been the New African American thing, because I hadn't been there before. And Scott and I were there, and it was the civil rights floor. And you could sit down, and there was an interactive thing where you could pick if you wanted to do, say, I said I was going to be part of the writers, the Freedom Riders. And then there's a series of questions that you would answer. And, you're told to make out your last will and testament. You want to continue? Well, I'd like to say yes, but I don't know. Would I have the courage to continue on in that vein, knowing that my life might be at risk for something to help people get their voting rights and civil rights and other things? One of the other questions was, as you went further into it, you've been arrested and fingerprinted and booked into jail. You have the offer to be let free because you are Caucasian and your Black colleagues are being kept in. Would you go? Would you stay? It's like, I would like to think I would stay with them, but I don't know. I'm such a chicken liver, I probably wouldn't. I don't know, really, really thought-provoking things. But I would hope, when push came to shove, that I would try to hold on to the Lord my God and not do anything to dishonor the Lord.
You have to stop and think what, as they say, what would Jesus do? That's what
Right.
you have to stop and think about. And a lot of times you don't. You're kind of panicky and you want to get out of there.
Well,
So,
and really, the people holding you in the jail, you'd like to think they were righteous people and wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I've, reading more about the early Christians, um, would I have had the fortitude to keep, declaring my Christianity, knowing I'm going to end up in the arena with the lions, maybe, or something? I mean, that's a tough question, Marilyn. I've had those same thoughts too. Gosh, how would I have done? I'm very careful about judging other people until I know the whole story. You just never know what they've been through.
Yeah,
right.
even, back to Palm Sunday, the Passion reading where, Peter, I got to be the maid saying, surely you're one of them because you're a Galilean. And, Peter saying, I don't know him. I don't know Jesus. But yeah, maybe I would have done the same thing.
One of the readings left off the last, and I think it was one of the ones I read on Good Friday, left off the very last sentence that I've heard after Peter denies Jesus for the third time, and then the cock crows. And I don't know which translation we were using for the service on
Mark,
Good
Mark.
Friday. Oh, it was Mark. Yeah, that's right, because we had to change the lyrics in one of our pieces. Um, but they left out the line, and Peter wept bitterly.
Oh,
Yeah,
Because
that was probably
you
in
know,
John.
can you imagine that realization? Oh my gosh, this is exactly what he said. I was warned, and it did it anyway.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, that's us all the time, though. We've
Mm-hmm.
been warned, we've been told, we've don't he we sang and it says, and this is an example, this is your example. I'm giving you the example. We sang it in one of our hymns over and over again. And he gave us the example, but we don't always follow it. And we feel crummy afterwards.
I'm so grateful that his mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, let's see. Are there any more comments on chapter 12? Otherwise, we'll move to 13.
Sometimes I wondered if the guys who were in the arena with the lions thought, well, this is going to be dreadful and awful, but I'm going to heaven, and the rest of us are going in a few years anyway. This is our time. They never knew that 2,000 years ago we're still diddling along with this.
Yeah,
No.
interesting questions.
I mean, none of us leave this life alive, so we have to,
No,
we have to, we have to,
so get ready.
rely on that.
It sounds like my mom. We don't know what happens after death. No one ever came back to tell the story.
Right, right, right.
I don't know what to
But
take.
like it's hard for us in our, here we are in 2024, and for most of us, our creature comforts are handled by indoor plumbing and electricity and food when we want it. And I know I try to imagine the real actual brutality and hardship of life, back in 1,000 or 2,000 years, and it kind of boggles your mind. If you are grown, if you grow up in it's maybe different. But for us, have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've got safety, we've got shelter, we've got food. Um, I just, I just think how those people survived is just
But pick up
amazing.
your paper, pick up your paper today, and you'll
Yeah,
see exactly that. You'll
yeah,
see exactly that.
yeah, yeah. And people in Ukraine and Gaza are, and Yemen and Syria are experiencing this
Dreadful.
kind of hardship in 2024.
Yeah. And I think what maybe keeps people sane is faith, whatever their faith is, and community. I mean, knowing you're not going through it alone. You're with your community. That's what would help me.
That does help.
Yeah.
That's what's important about conflict.
Right. It's just a way to close out the day and just be reminded who's in charge. Evil is not in charge. Evil does not get the last word, even though sometimes it sure looks like it. Shall we move on to 13? I can read the message if somebody wants to read, and they have us going through, this is called Walk with the Wise, and it's all the way through 13, so all the verses. If somebody wants to read a regular version, I can do the message.
I can do that.
Thanks, Sharon.
A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not listen to rebuke.
Intelligent children listen to their parents. Foolish children do their own thing.
From the fruit of his lips, a man enjoys good things, but the unfaithful have a craving for violence.
The good acquire a taste for helpful conversation. Bullies push and shove their way through life.
He who guards his lips guards his life, but he who speaks rashly will come to ruin.
Careless words make for a careful life. Careless talk may ruin everything.
The sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied.
Indolence wants it all and gets nothing. The energetic have something to show for their lives.
The righteous hate what is false, but the wicked bring shame and disgrace.
A good person hates false talk. A bad person wallows in gibberish.
Gibberish.
Righteousness guards the man of integrity, but wickedness overthrows the sinner.
A God-loyal life keeps you on track. Sin dumps the wicked in the ditch.
One man pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet he has great wealth.
A pretentious, showy life is an empty life. A plain and simple life is a full life.
A man's riches may ransom his life, but a poor man hears no threat.
The rich can be sued for everything they have, but the poor are free of such threats.
The light of the righteous shines brightly, but the lamp of the wicked is snuffed out.
The lives of good people are brightly lit streets. The lives of the wicked are dark alleys.
Pride only breeds quarrels, but wisdom is found in those who take advice.
Arrogant know-it-alls stir up discord, but wise men and women listen to each other's counsel.
Dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow.
Easy come, easy go, but steady diligence pays off.
Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life.
Unrelenting disappointment leaves you heartsick, but a sudden good break can turn life around.
He who scorns instruction will pay for it, but he who respects a command is rewarded.
Ignore the word and suffer, honor God's commands and grow rich.
The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, turning a man from the snares of death.
The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, so no more drinking from death-tainted wells.
Good understanding wins favor, but the way of the unfaithful is hard.
Sound thinking makes for gracious living, but liars walk a rough road.
Every prudent man acts out of knowledge, but a fool exposes his folly.
A common sense person lives good sense. Fools litter the country with silliness.
A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a trustworthy envoy brings healing.
Irresponsible talk makes a real mess of things, but a reliable reporter is a healing presence.
He who ignores discipline comes to poverty and shame, but whoever heeds correction is honored.
Refuse discipline and end up homeless. Embrace correction and live an honored life.
A longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but fools detest turning from evil.
Souls who follow their hearts thrive. Fools bent on evil despise matters of soul.
He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm.
Become wise by walking with the wise. Hang out with fools and watch your life fall to pieces.
Misfortune pursues the sinner, but prosperity is the reward of the righteous.
Disaster entraps sinners, but God-loyal people get a good life.
A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous.
A good life gets passed on to the grandchildren. Ill-gotten wealth ends up with good people.
A poor man's field may produce abundant food, but injustice sweeps it away.
Banks foreclose on the farms of the poor, or else the poor lose their shirts to crooked lawyers.
He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him.
A refusal to correct is a refusal to love. Love your children by disciplining them.
The righteous eat to their heart's content, but the stomach of the wicked goes hungry.
An appetite for good brings much satisfaction, but the belly of the wicked always wants more. Interesting. Any comments on any of those interesting things in 13?
Verse 3 caught my attention. He who guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. And it was in kind of a political context of, we have freedom of speech and so on here. But if you were in Russia and you said certain things, I mean, you have to really watch what you say, because just saying something can have dire consequences. And then there was 11. I had a different variation on that one. It says, wealth hastily gotten will dwindle, but he who gathers little by little will increase it.
And like 21, ill fortune follows the sinner close behind, but good rewards the righteous. That isn't always true either.
That's another one that's not, yeah.
I'm maybe following it too literally, but some of those hit Jen.
22 kind of bothered me. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. What does that mean?
A good man leaves an inheritance, but the sinner's wealth passes.
The note in mine says is stored up for the righteous. As Job agrees that this is often what happens to a wicked man's possessions. So it sounds like they might end up being not his anymore. The wicked man being given to the
But
righteous.
then who are they given? Who's it given to?
The
righteous, whoever they are.
Probably the wealthy righteous instead of the poor righteous.
Well, there was something in here about the poor have their land taken away, or either that or rich lawyers get it.
Yeah.
Lawyers, it was really quite alarming.
I have a footnote on that. That was verse 23. It says, this may mean a lawsuit devours the poor man's land and his home is swept away when there is no justice.
Oh,
of course. I was looking at verse 8. The wealth is a ransom for a person's life, but the poor get no threats. That, I don't know, that just seems sort of weird. Oops, I lost you people. Where'd you go?
We see
We
you.
can see you.
We could.
My mouse fell.
Oh. I'm glad it's just that mouse and not something that's running around.
I don't have that kind of mouth.
Yeah, that's good.
I gotta find. Where are we?
Virginia asked Vita and I, we were talking about Bible study, and we said, well, we're kind of at loose ends and we're kind of doing it on our own. And she said, well, Sharon's been running it for years. And I said, no, I don't mean that.
Yeah.
and she didn't seem to get.
No.
Because I heard you say earlier, Marilyn, it's nice to have someone who's been to seminary or something. We're doing okay, but it would be nice to have somebody say, this is kind of how we look at it in the church.
Right.
Yeah, we have a few more questions and answers. and what I liked about Basil, because we read there were some of the things we read with him. There were more than a few places that were a little problematic. And what I liked was that he presented the different paths various scholars have gone down and said, consensus or seems to be this one is a little bit too much of a rabbit hole, so let's pull back from that, let's do this other thing. And I thought he did a very even-handed job of that. Yeah, I was trying to explain to Virginia, and it was also right before we had to start
Yeah.
practicing, so we didn't have enough time to
But
talk
on the
about.
other hand, we could next do Trump's Bible.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, it's going to cost us
Who's gonna
$60
buy it?
each to get it.
Who's gonna buy it in this group? I don't think any
Oh
of
my
us
I
gosh.
are.
only said it in this group because I knew the group.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's too funny.
oh.
Yeah,
You know,
the
we can,
Saturday,
I
we
feel like we can continue through Proverbs and maybe one other thing before we break for the summer, but it would be nice to have like a real teacher
Mhm.
for some study in the fall, but we'll have to think about that because I'm not sure
Yeah.
who could be tapped, if
Or even,
Jen or Basil.
even
Basil
one of
was
our
so
priests,
wonderful. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah,
if one of
I,
our priests or Basil could um, just come once and say what the purpose was of Proverbs or why they felt it should be in the Bible. I mean, they're common sense stuff. It's
Yeah.
not,
I,
it's not
I think
shocking stuff.
one of the purposes is to read this with a child, to have the child grow up in a good manner,
Yeah,
a responsible manner.
God-fearing.
yeah.
And I found couple more references in the between the Proverbs and the New Testament. And Proverbs 13:7, one man pretends to be rich yet has nothing, another pretends to be poor yet has great wealth. That's a reference to, or at least this, whoever did this interpretation, to Revelation 3:17. Three, not two, 3:17. You say, I am rich. This is to the church in Laodicea, the angel saying, you say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing, but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked, which has always been one of my favorite verses from Revelation. It's like, just wake up and see how wretched and miserable and blind and poor you are. So they see this translator anyway, thought that referred back from Proverbs. And then Proverbs 13, verse 24, he who spares the rod hates his son, but who loves him is careful to discipline him, was a reference back to Ephesians 6:4. Let's see here. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And also Hebrews 12:7. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? So, yeah, some kind of stuff back and forth between Proverbs and the New Testament. I mean, there is a reason that this ended up in the canon of scripture, and I think what Hulda brought out and what it said in that Bible commentary that she had was that this is wisdom pretty much from the surrounding areas of Israel, not necessarily from Solomon, but Solomon appropriated it, and all the cultures shared their own wisdom. I think a lot of this is from Egypt.
Yeah.
But when you get down to it, people all want the same thing for their kids. They want them to grow up and be contributors to society and live a purposeful life.
Mhm.
it seemed like between my revised standard and the message, um, the notion of uh, discipline and correction is milder in the message, and whereas the Bible, the older Bible versions are, use the rod. I mean, corporal punishment was expected, and that was the way to discipline or correct a behavior. And um, I know it's just interesting, and our society has moved away from physical punishment, Whereas in my dad's upbringing, that was how you disciplined. I mean, I got plenty of spankings, and
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, you just if
Yeah.
I never heard Vita Margaret, but if I heard Vita, I knew I was in trouble.
You all know what the term box having your ears boxed means?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Well, that's corporal.
that's horrible. Yep, yep.
Oh,
That
I
was
got the
really
hairbrush. I got spanked with a hairbrush.
I
And
did too.
We did
Yeah.
too.
I
Yeah.
hated that hairbrush.
Uh,
To this day, I will not brush my hair.
well, the belt was no fun.
Or the
Thankfully,
paddle.
yeah, or paddle. Yeah, thankfully that only didn't happen all the time. So.
Well, you mentioned Hulda a while back. She had said she would lead us 2 weeks from today, but
Okay.
we need somebody for next week. And as you can see, it's not onerous. It just needs somebody to say start here and end here, and who wants to read. So who would like to do that?
Would that be 14 and 15?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Has anybody looked in the library at church for a book about Proverbs?
I have not.
That's a great idea.
Joanne, remind us to do that this
Yeah,
afternoon.
we're going to be there this afternoon. Yeah, we'll look.
Okay,
Good idea. Mm-hmm.
that's great.
Should we look under G for God for the author or what?
Under
Under
T for
never-
Trump. Yeah.
I never can find anything in that
I
library.
know if you don't know the
I
author.
never can find
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But there are interesting books there if you just look.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are.
Last
Okay.
week, when I was leading, before I did that, I did Google just Proverbs, and there are lots of books just about Proverbs. So
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's true. Yeah.
Before we end, I'd like to do this. When David was reading a book, and he said, Joanne, listen to this. And I just have to share it. And what do you think of this one? He that hath wife and children hath great hostages to fortune, for they are impediments to great enterprises, either of virtue or mischief.
Oh.
And the guy said, is that Proverbs? And the other guy said, no, Francis Bacon. But doesn't it sound like a proverb?
It
Oh
does.
my gosh.
It said, if, you're not going to get married, you're going to have an impediment. I mean, it's just, they're hostages for fortune and impediments to great enterprises. So,
Well, I guess it depends on what you think a great enterprise is.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Proverbially, Francis Bacon is saying that.
Yes.
All righty. Well, did anybody sign up for next week?